Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Walker Cinema. My name is Patricia Ledesma Vallon. I'm the assistant curator here of Moving Image at the Walker Art Center. Today's a pretty special evening. I'm really excited to welcome you all into the space to welcome the premiere of Ayanna Dozier's new film, Forgetting You is Like Breathing Water, with Ayanna here in person for a post-show discussion with the filmmaker Zia Anger, whose recent film, My First Film, we played here in the Walker Cinema back in January. And we're excited to finally have the chance to bring Zia here as well and have the two of them in conversation with one another following this screening that we're having. Some things that I wanted to put forward about their practices is how the two evoke notions of the personal and translate it specifically on their own terms, culminating in what Ayanna defines as an art practice as masochistic behavior. In the Walker Reader, I invited the two to share a bit more about their practices as artists and bring forward ideas around art, life, representations of the self, autobiographical distance, and how we engage with definitions of intimacy. Ayanna Dozier's practice and specifically looks at scenes of sex work in general, and transactional intimacy between individuals. And I'd really like to encourage you all to read the piece online. In terms of other engagements that we have here with Ayanna tonight, we also have a playlist of Ayanna's work from her Close But No Cigar trilogy in the Mediatek, which is the space down the hall to my left right now. And I'd like to encourage you all to view the playlist, which will be available up until the end of museum hours tomorrow evening at 5, and this is available for self-select in the Benson Mediatek, which is always available for free during the time the museum is open. And first we'll watch a 6-minute short from Ayanna called Bounded Intimacy, and then jump into her newer film, Forgetting You is Like Breathing Water. Ayanna also wanted me to note that the final sound mix for Forgetting You is not the final sound mix. So we really look forward to also seeing the final sound mix from the film. But, you know, we also like to think of the Walker Cinema as a space in which we support the creation of artists' work, think critically about the perspectives that they bring forth in their work and their creative practices towards the moving image and so forth. So yeah, please join us afterwards for the talk, which I think will be really, really exciting given the you know, nodes and networks that the two share in their specific practices. So yeah, we'll run the film, and I look forward to the discussion, and thank you again for joining us tonight this evening. So yes, please give us a round of applause for the premiere of Ayanna's new film. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Zia.
And I'm Ayanna.
Thank you to the Walker and Patricia for having us. Congratulations
Thanks.
on your beautiful film.
Thank you.
I know it's not 100% finished.
Painful.
Yeah, I have been there before, but thank you for sharing it with us. It's, you know, I love seeing things before they're done. It's kind of my thing. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah, I wrote my questions on my phone. I wanted to try to not pull it out, but I might end up having to. But
Yeah.
you know, when I think about being a filmmaker, you know, the deeper I've gone into thinking about my own practice, I can relate it back to pieces of my life. And what it most resonates with is being on set feels like when I used to play varsity sports. You're surrounded by people. You're all working on the same thing together. There are people that are more important than you and less important than you, but everybody is like important.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if in your practice there, you know, like where does this relate to in your life? Like, who do you feel like, I'm going to ask you more about your process on set, but who do you feel like on set do you just feel like a filmmaker? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel exhausted, and we'll get into that with the process part, but I tried getting more support on this. I self-fund all of my work at this moment in my life, would love to stop doing that. But I don't know. I don't know the appropriate people. I don't know who to ask. So I did, raise a little bit of money, and yeah, I had some people reach out and they were like, "Oh, we'll help you do sound for $3,000 a day." And I was like, I don't have the budget for that. Like, I had someone who was like, "Oh, I'll gaff your set for $5,000 a day." And I have no idea how they got these numbers, but yeah, I couldn't find anyone. I had a small crew. But even the intimacy coordinator, who's like SAG-AFTRA, like, she didn't ask for that. She asked for what the rates were. So for some reason, like, leading up into this film, I just got all these very young individuals who heard about the film, and I don't know what they thought about my process or why they thought I had more money, but I just couldn't find anyone who wanted to like work $1,000 a day, which sounds insane, but it's true. I couldn't. And so I just went into set feeling exhausted because like I don't have the resources to connect to a lot of people. I know a lot of people, but it always works like when I do labor for others. Like if I'm going to write about somebody's work, or if I'm going to like put someone in conversation, that's when everyone appears. But when it's like, I'm going to do my own thing, it's kind of crickets. So yeah, I think on set, I'm just fully at capacity, and any one thing can go wrong, and it's usually my fault. So I'm just really hard. I'm generous with everybody else, and I'm very, other people freak out and I like take deep breaths, but I'm like spinning 40 plates and I'm just like, I don't even have time to like think clearly because like there's just no room in the brain to do that. So yeah.
So then with your process leading up to that, like how, like I'm curious about like, are you writing where are these things, like what is your process look like? Is it like a lot of writing?
Yeah.
Is it a lot of images?
Yeah. So there are some things that are, stressful because that is just what I want to do when it comes to being on set or just making a film. I'm not really interested in working with other people as scriptwriters. I conceive of all my projects myself. I also have like a musical theater background and stage play background. I went to performing arts magnet school. So a lot of my writing comes from there. I minored in creative writing. So the conception of all the works is solitary. It is just my mind working through things. And then on set, the things that I do not want to concede ever is that I'm always going to be the director. And I'm also going to be my own DP because I'm a photographer. So a lot of the images, like they transcend just composition. Like I want to control the filters. I want to control the lenses. I have a lot of thoughts about lenses. I have a lot of thoughts about cameras. I shoot on film. I know how to shoot on film. I know how to load the camera. And so a lot of that, like the structure of the film is coming from me. And then like, how does something like this come to exist as, oh, I should pursue that? I mean, I think I'm still figuring that out, but I am a visual artist in addition to the filmmaking practice, and I do a lot of performance work. I do a lot of photography. Experimental tends to be my jam, as you guys saw in the first film. So that is always something where I have to check in with myself. I always have to think about what aspect of life am I witnessing, or that I've like lived through that I wanna like pull through. And it's never a one-to-one. I don't think I do anything that's so autobiographical. But everything I do has a nugget of autobiography. And I don't want to sound hokey, but it is holistic in how it comes to be. It's a timing issue in my life. It's something like maybe I'll do a performance art workshop and then I'll get an idea. I'll have a dream and I'll pursue it. I have a show on View in New York, and it's called Get on Your Knees, Jesus Loves You. And the whole point of that work was that about 2 years ago, I turned 33. And as a recovering Christian, that like traumatized me because that's like the age of Christ. So that's how that work came to be, right? I was like, I got to reread the Bible. I got to rethink about my life as a Christian, And then I made all this work out of it. So something like this was, I had a breakup and I couldn't get unstuck from that breakup, and it caused me to write someone else like me and think about things I've done.
And then, because I think you said this the last time we talked. There's parts of characters, there's parts of you in all of the characters. Yeah. How are you casting these? How are you identifying these parts of yourself? And then, it's more than just yourself, but casting these people. Like, are you holding casting calls? Like, do you know the person when you see it? Yeah. Like, how do you? I don't know. I'm really curious because also, like, how do you cast for a film? Yeah. That has this material in it.
Yeah. So I've been in some of my work. I've actually, I would say there's like, my practice is 50-50. 50% of the time I'm also in front of the camera, and then 50% of the time I'm not in front of the camera. And so about 2 years ago, I did this performance art workshop, closed workshop, with a group of other individuals who are performance artists who are also have either had experience with sex work, and or who work with that in their practice. And that's something I've also been very upfront about, as Patricia noted, in my practice. If everything's autobiographical, like, that is something I've done in my life, and I'm interested in using my practice to rethink and kind of find other angles inside of it. So we were doing this workshop, which came about maybe 4 months after I had ended this relationship I was in. And it was very fluxus. It was a lot of us journaling and then picking a word and then saying the word and then giving it to other people. But, the beauty about that workshop is that because we all were and had been working girls, like, no part of our life was like off limits. Whereas normally in a performance art workshop, I like withhold some things because I don't want to have someone be like, oh, you mean sex trafficking? Which has happened very recently in talking about the same film, in fact. So it was really nice to just think about the messiness of, those times in your life where, if the job is romance and selling desire, how do you sell romance and desire when you're like dealing with a broken heart, right? And while that is behind me, my first proper breakup, which was like 15 years ago, happened right before I had a client. And there's a film I want to make about that still, because it's just such a surreal experience. But in that space of like drifting in and out and like doing deep meditative exercises, I thought like, what if I had a client now? Like, I was like, I'm so not okay. I was like, what would I do? And it kind of conjured up some things I've done in the past. And I just collided those experiences together. And I thought it was going to be me for a really long time. And
the person who...
The lead actress.
Yeah, the lead actress, yeah.
I thought it was going to be me. But then I had a dream one night, and the lead actress, Cleo, she's a friend of mine. And for some reason... we're not like best friends. I mean, we're good friends, don't get me wrong, but like, it's not like we talk all the time or anything. And I just like, I was already thinking of this film, and I've been thinking about it for about 5 months before I wrote the script. So images were coming to me, sequences were coming to me, and I went to bed and it was her. It was just her, and like a full sequence from the film. And I was like, fuck. Yeah. And so I had to take her out for coffee, and I was like, I had a dream. That you were meant to be in this movie. I know you've never acted before, but yeah.
She's wonderful.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's a performance artist. So so there's a nimbleness there. There's an openness. Yeah. And then for Dave, I had a casting call, and I auditioned several actors, which was interesting.
I can imagine. And you worked with an intimacy coordinator. I've worked with an intimacy coordinator. I find it fascinating. I find it just like totally amazing. I want to, like, until you see it in action, an intimacy coordinator and how they do it. I'm wondering if there's any part of this film you could explain to the audience about how the intimacy coordinator worked with the actors, and because it's totally, it's awesome. Yeah. And I don't know, anecdotally, like, I want to hear like one of those moments that you used you used an intimacy coordinator, I assume the whole time, but one of the I don't want to call it a gag or whatever because it's not, but they call it simulated sex. You're not supposed to call it sex. Like, one of the parts of the simulated sex, how'd you do that to make what, and when I say sex, I mean like the whole spectrum, not,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So obviously there's all this, noise about intimacy coordinators. Who was it recently? Gwyneth Paltrow was like, and my day wouldn't have that, like recently. And so you often hear that, and they've always been around. It's just post question of Me Too, it really jumped as like, why isn't this mandatory? And it should be mandatory. And so I didn't really know much about intimacy coordinators. She slid into my DMs. She saw the casting call for Dave, which was very frank. It was like full nudity, very like frank description of what's going to happen. And she was like, you need an IC. And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, I'm open to that. Absolutely. I was like, my brain wasn't even thinking that far. And so her and I met first, and I did tell her, I have, as a director, I'm very hands-on. And I think that's because I have a dance background, I'm a performance artist, and I'm the DP. So I am very exacting is how I like to say things. And I'm not afraid. I always ask, if I can touch, but I will choreograph your body. I will intervene. And sometimes on set, I will act out the scene and be like, okay, you're giving me this. I want you to give me this. Like, I want you to, and I'll do these really, non-related exercises and dance sequences to kind of get people into character. So I wanted to make sure that she was okay with that I have a vision of how I want to choreograph these very intimate and troubling scenes. And I want you to be part of that, but I don't want it to be like a battle between the two. And I also don't want to feel like, I was like, I want you to be there and support for the actors. I was like, but I really don't want you to like step on my foot, because I have a very tight vision of what these compositions should look like and the bodies moving in them. And she was just like, great. She's like, I'm here to just make that look good. Right? She's like, I'm here to add to what you need to do, and then to think about what you're not thinking about. And so we had a lot of rehearsal before we shot. And there was a very clear moment. So we were rehearsing in my apartment, and it's the opening sequence actually with Steven rather, and Cleo, and they're in the bed, and we were kind of positioning them, they were rehearsal, so they were wearing clothes. And I like kind of shaped them. And then because I was looking at their faces, obviously, she goes and she takes Cleo's leg and like wraps it around his leg, and then like takes his hand and moves it. And she's like, this just looks better. And she's like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I was like, no, I do love it. I was like, yes. I was like, that right there, that moment of synergy where I could do what I needed to do and she just enhanced it. It was great. And then on set, she just, she was able to think about things that I was not thinking about. Like, for example, the heel gag, as we were going through all the things that needed to be done, she's like, great, we have to sanitize the heel after each take. And I was like, that's right. We would have to sanitize the heel. I was like, if that was left up to me, I'd be like, just be okay with a Louis Vuitton in your mouth. I mean, she brought robes. She had her little kit for, nudity, and she was always just kind of thinking of like, okay, when for Ben, the actor who plays Dave, pardon me, just like very, okay, when does Ben need his shorts on? When does he not need it, right? Like, when can we not, like, does this composition require full nudity, right? And just having that there, I think helped both me and the actors, because the actors were also so in the scene that they're not really aware of like, oh yeah, thank you. Like, I actually do want my robe on right now, because if she's just getting this, we don't need to do that. So it was just really, it was nice. And I don't want to get astrological here, but she's a Virgo and I'm a Virgo. And so I just think we linked up, like, and her and I are now friends, and she's helped me. She's a dancer as well. So I've worked with her on another project, and I have another project in mind that I want to work with her on, but it was just easy. I don't know how else to say it. It was easy, and she made the film look better.
That was similar to my experience, where you're like, wow, yeah. I didn't know I needed that. And like, I'm so glad that I had that. And also, like, I can't believe that I was about to try to do that without you. Like that was the biggest, I wasn't ever going to try to do the film that I use an intimacy coordinator on without one, but it was kind of like, you don't know until they're working, and then you're like, wow, that's so, it's like having another technical, it's like having a gaffer or something, or a cinematographer that just like knows about intimacy and knows like the way to get what they want, and also thinks of things like, well, these people are kissing a lot, maybe they want gum, you know?
Yes,
like, wow.
mints. She had like an entire, she's like, okay, if you don't like gum, we have mints. I have like Listerine strips. Just, it was a lot. It was, she had a full kit of so many different sanitary things, face wipes, and, mouth stuff.
They'll give you a ball if they're having, like missionary simulated sex. They'll give you a ball to put between the actors. Yeah. It's like, it's honestly really interesting. I'd love to see a film on that. Yeah. Because I think most people don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've explained this process that you're the writer, you're the director.
Yeah.
Sometimes you appear.
Yeah. In
the films, you're always the director of photography. I'm really curious where you end and the film begins, and I'm curious in this way because I think sometimes it doesn't happen and sometimes it does happen, and when does the film become a living thing? Does it maybe, I don't know about this film, but like, does it become a living thing of its own, like beyond you, beyond your control?
Yeah. I mean, at some point it has to, right? I think there were times on set where I had like dysphoria, because these are things that it's not a one-to-one biography at all. It's just, there's just elements that I'm clearly replaying and like playing with. And so there were just moments where I'm like behind the viewfinder and I would kind of get glazed over because like neither actor looks like me. And so, so there was just moments where I was like, that's not how I would do, like, that's not how I did it. Like, and I obviously kept that to myself and I just allowed it to be. But those moments stand out where it's like, oh, this is not me. Like, this is not mine anymore. These are not, this is them. What Cleo did with Anna Celine is like hers, right? It's hers. There's just a lot of things. And there was a different edit that you saw where Celine, Anna like dances to get out her aggression. And I ended up cutting that because Cleo doesn't like dance a lot, actually, right? And it just didn't look that great in the film. And so it was like, we don't really need it, But I wanted to keep it for the longest time because I dance my aggression out, right? Like, that's what I do. And I really wanted a sequence where the character did that because, like, that's me. And I wanted to keep as much of the things that felt familiar to me as possible. But, like, as editing it, in the process of editing it, I had to let go of that. And so, I think like the process of production, the editing, it strips a lot of me out of it. And then screening it does so as well. And I think the more it shows, the more I won't begin to fully recognize it. But I think it'll take a little bit of time because I do have films that I'm just now starting to like be like, wow, that's not, who did that, right? So I think it's all of it. I think it's production, post-production, and the exhibition of it. And time is where you start to see yourself disconnected from those elements.
And I forget the exact description, what the words were that you used about this, but one was grief, or right? Was there that like, yeah, like there's a couple things that these characters are trying to figure out, that my assumption is in making this film, you were trying to figure out too.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if now on the other side, like what you learned about the things that you feel the characters are trying to figure out.
Yeah. So I'll start with the most recent one. I had a bit of a breakthrough over the weekend watching someone else's film. It was a biography, Angelo Madsen. It's called A Body to Live In. And it's about the BDSM body modifier, Foucault Misaffaire. And anyways, watching that, there was a lot of, BDSM or SM scenes. And talking with Angelo afterwards at the screening, I just had this moment because we started talking about specific, SM related activities, and waterboarding was something that it's always been like there in my former practice in that life of mine, and just as something that I've always come back to. And we were talking about power, we were talking about oppression, we were talking about the critiques against SM. There's a lot of critiques coming in opposition to it, saying, just reproduces state power, which I don't disagree with. But in that statement, I blurted out, I was like, oh, as a child of the war on Iraq, not that I was born out of that, but I'm saying that's where my politics came from. It's the first time I became critical of empire. That's the first time I became critical of imperialism. And that was the first time I was exposed to state terror, right? Vivid descriptions of waterboarding and seeing it weaponized and seeing the body weaponized like that. And I just had a moment where I was like, oh, when I was a dominatrix, which was 15 years ago, I was very young. I was really interested in trying to flip the script of power in taking on white male clients and specifically ones who would kind of announce themselves as bad people, not just a white man, just someone who's oh yeah, I just bankrupted someone's home, cause I could. And being I'm smiling cause I'm oh, I'm going to get you for that. I'm going to actually do the thing of the state that never touches a body like yours. And that's my intervention. And it's not saying it's effective. I want to be very clear, but I'm talking about that kind of psychological, psychosomatic dynamic that we all have with the state. We all have it. And of course, on a condition of being a racialized body, you would expect, or you would think that I would identify, right, with the wounded, right, with the individuals who are being tortured by the state. But instead, I always wanted to flip that dynamic. I never wanted to actually revel or make work about bodies of color or marginalized bodies suffering. And yeah, I only realized this on Sunday. 15 years. And it sounds simple. It doesn't maybe sound simple, but it sounds straightforward when I say it like that. But I honestly just didn't know, because it's been so long since I've done that. It's just I would always come back to these moments. I was like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And it was always this mystery in my life. And then I did the film, a year ago, and was still editing it up until Monday. And then I was like, oh, that's why. So that was a revelation. The heartbreak stuff, I think talking about heartbreak is what makes a relationship real. And I think, whether or not that person ever knows, I don't know, now I'm going to get hokey. I made a film about it. It was real. My feelings about him were real. It was real. And I think that's the only way I can measure my life now that I'm getting older. People come and go. People die. You don't talk to people again, but you write it down. You write it down. You make a fucking film about it. And then that gives you some kind of sense of, yeah, it happened and I did care. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to open it up to any audience questions. If you guys have some, there's a mic back there, one or two. You could just raise your hand. I'm only going to do maybe 2 questions, so make them good.
No pressure.
Or 3 or 4, whatever.
We'll just stay until they kick us out.
I really liked your use of kind of archival fetish imagery within the work, and that's something that I focus on a lot, and was just interested to hear kind of how you think that can kind of change or transform how we look at the work, or just kind of your relationship to the archival fetish imagery in general? Sorry, that was a very not straightforward question, but yeah.
Yeah. That ad, the call girl ad, I was born in 1990, so late night infomercials is a whole thing in my life. And also, I didn't include the clip of it because it's too campy, and I didn't want it to disrupt that sequence of black and white to color. But the call 1-900-9099-CRY, like that statement is really powerful, that there was a hotline for people to cry. The ad is ridiculous. Like, the visuals of it are ridiculous, but the sentiment is so, like, it's real. Like, we need people to talk to. We don't always have access to that. And that's really also what, if we want to like think more critically about the sex worker call girl, that's, it's criminalized. Obviously, this is my spiel to be like, decriminalize it, not regulate it, but decriminalize it. And it's something that people have all these thoughts about. And yet it's a type of labor that I say as a feminist, that even in a post-capitalist environment, we obliterate capitalism, because people always like to defend sex work because capitalism exploits labor. And so they say, I understand why people do it. I defend it because I actually think it's a form of care work. I think sex is a certain type of labor. I think it's great if you have it in relationships or in just casual encounters. I also think that it's unfair to put the psychological needs and pure fantastical needs of sex onto one person. And I think that sex work is not always about penetration. Like that scene, there was no penetration in it, right? And yet she was able to kind of intervene and see something in him that she can only do because of where she's at in her life, and also because of her experience with clients like him, right? And so the Call Girl ad kind of sets audiences up for what we're about to get early on, because we open up with her kind of flashback dream of her relationship, but then we also get the clutter of noise of labor that comes through, the labor of always having to help other people, be other people's fantasies when you can't even get a handle on your own fantasy. So that's what that was, and I think having taken in all this infomercial clutter as a child, as a young adult, there was something very interesting there about seeing how that just stays with us long after the television goes away.
Yeah, also you never would see those ads with the actual real people that might be, on the other side of the phone or something like that. So,
yeah.
You're kind of like, I've seen those ads a zillion times as a young person, and never have I also seen someone off the clock who it's just really interesting.
Yeah. I recently did a film series at Anthology Film Archives about sex workers on screen. And one film I screened was Girl 6 by Spike Lee, which is all about call girls. And that's part of the humor of phone sex operators. I have individuals in my life who have done it. Is that the gag is that they don't look like the women who are put in the ads. And that's also, there's a lot more to say about that disconnect. And then also our particular standards of beauty and whatnot. But yeah, and then also sexuality too. I think it's subtly in this film, but most, not all, but it is a stereotype to say most women identifying sex workers are actually either bisexual or gay. And there's a little bit of that there too. That's maybe not necessarily the central character, but definitely encroached around it, that, a lot of this is performance desire, right, for someone else.
I think that I saw one or two other hands.
Hi, thank you for that.
There's a mic.
Here you go.
Oh, a mic. Hold it like a rock star. So, you made the delineation between a performance artist and an actor.
Yeah.
And I wanted to understand in your mind that delineation.
Yeah. So I did go to performing arts magnet school. And actually, when I went to undergrad, I was accepted into the theater program there. And then I stopped. Yeah. But the delineation for me, and I say this with respect because I obviously I want to make more narrative films. I want to continue to work with actors in quotation marks. But actors, like when I was in school, I was like the only one in me who was interested in like theater of the absurd. I was the only one interested in like thinking more about like feeling the scene rather than fully performing the scene. A lot of my colleagues, were interested in the big emotions, right? Because they want to prove something. And so they go to extremes. And I have a film that I don't always advertise that I have done. And mercifully, it's a short film, so unfortunately, it will just get buried. But it's good, where I worked with actors, like SAG-AFTRA actors, and it's one of the worst things I've ever made. And it's one of the worst things I ever made because I was being very gentle. I'm not a filmmaker who yells. I'm very exacting and I'm very stern. But when you need me to I'm not going to give you that because I have way too many things to do, and it actually annoys me, right? I'd rather take a break and come back. And I had my mentor on set who told me after the production wrapped, he was like, those are the type of actors, they need you to yell at them because they need that type of antagonism to feel like they can get something out. Like they came in with a type of lack that they wanted the director to fulfill. And I just don't have time for that. And I've been around a lot of actors who are like that. I'm not saying all are like that, but a good portion of them are. Whereas with performance artists or even non-actors, there's an openness there that they don't come in being like, well, I do the Meisner, technique. I'm a method actor, or I'm going to do this. And so I have my like toolkit. They're just interested in getting the words right. And then there's an openness to feel something through in a way that's maybe more connected to dance, connected more to rhythm, to breathing, to just all these other frameworks that allow me then to find that moment that sparks and to say, let's do that and capture it. And with actors, I think they just come in they come in with a lot of low self-esteem too. Not all, but a good portion of them. And I'm not interested in that. And I don't ever want to work with someone who does method acting. That would drive me insane. So I have a sense of I think I want to continue working with non-actors and performance artists and the actors who get it, the actors who are bold and who like watching films and who are interested in different techniques and who don't come in thinking that they want to rewrite something or, they want to prove something to themselves that they can cry on cue, right? A lot of actors like big emotions. And I'm like, we don't actually need to go big. We just need to slow it down, right? The camera captures so much. I don't need you to be there. I need you to just be here. So yeah, I can go on about that because there's a lot of contemporary actors right now that people are like, they're so great. And God, I watch them on film and I'm like, I can literally see them thinking through the next moments of how they're going to articulate that emotion instead of just being in the moment. And yeah, that's just something I pay attention to because I've done both, right? Because I kind of exist on both sides. Yeah.
Anyone else? I'm kind of down with method acting.
Wow.
I didn't used to be, but I've come around to the whole thing just being like, well, I guess, I'm kind of, at a certain point as a director, I'm like, I'm a method actor. This is I'm just believing, I just got to believe that I'm a director right now. I don't know. I don't know if there's any part of that, if I can convince you.
No, I just think method, so.
I get what you're saying when you see an actor and you can see the whole thing. I'm talking about having empathy for the experience of being I'm like, yeah,
sure.
I totally want to do that.
Yeah. I remember when I was in acting, my instructor was she also was against, method acting. And she said, the whole point is that the situation is fake, but you believe it's real. And that stayed with me because I also don't like when filmmakers than say it's authentic. Because I'm someone who, and this might just because I'm conceptual or I'm like theory minded, but it's all fake. You know, once
I agree with you.
yeah, it's all fake. And but that doesn't mean that it can't produce real things. You know, I don't want to make anything authentic. I don't want, like, the camera can never be authentic. You know, everything's always performed and constructed. And the more comfortable we get with that, the more we can allow ourselves for more truths about the world to exist, right? That the demand for authenticity encloses one truth. It has to be the one thing. And if it's not that, then it doesn't matter. And that's what I find method acting is like. It's like, I got to find the truth of it. It's kind of like, did you watch May December? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of is like Natalie Portman's character, that, right? Where she's like, she keeps, and that ending sequence is so camp because like she keeps trying to redo it because she's like, it's not real yet.
Yeah.
And the whole point is like, it was never going to be real. Like, even in the actual character's life, she doesn't know. So it's like, let the mystery be and accept that something real might happen by us playing make-believe.
Well, right. So I'm 100% with you. And then I'm like, the problem isn't method actors. It's the need for it's the industry's need for realism. It's the audience's need for realism. Yeah. Right? Like it's not the people playing the parts as much as it's like the people or the industry like thinking what needs to be constructing that, like, this has to be like totally realistic. And like the need for, which of course maybe there is a need for realism. I mean, like, people want to see their shit on screen, you know, like that satisfies some personal thing inside of us. But I would like, yeah, I guess I would, we're like right on the same, we're on the edge
of
like
the coin.
walking on the same line. And I really feel like, yeah, it's maybe not the method actor, like it's not their fault.
So it's very kind. I always say, and I've said this like for many years now about like just everything I do, from writing to being a photographer to being a director to, you know, anything, to being an actor. I'm not authentic. I don't care. I'm authentically inauthentic, right? I'm committed to the bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will, and especially in my other work when I'm in it, you know, I have a wig on, I have fake lashes on, I got fake nails on. It's, you know, and I'm doing something fucking stupid, like riding a kiddie ride. But I'm like, but it matters. And I think that's what makes it real. We all got together, we did it, we're all committed to this. And that's what's real, right? But I don't need to, like, as a performer, I don't need to live there. And now if you want to, you know, I think method actors have some long-term psychological harm they engage with, right, by living there.
Don't we all? Okay. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, the stakes are the made up stakes that we've all created are all we've got. So
yeah.
On that, congratulations.
Thank you.
Committed to the bit.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you.